This story is called After the Vaccine by Vanessa Parisi. My brisk walk through the throngs of maskless strangers in the pub came to an abrupt halt as I rediscovered this foreign place that I had visited so many times before. I flinched as a man knocked my shoulder. He rolled his eyes disapprovingly, but I felt a more affable connection to him than in those past years, as his nervous glance told me that he too was feeling the specific disorienting elation of being in such close proximity to a new person. Throughout the never-ending cycle of lockdowns this year, we had all prophesied the unfathomably wild nights we would have when this fabled winter arrived. Now that it had arrived, we all behaved like startled deer, hesitant to believe the ubiquitous apex predator virus was really gone. Our bodies had all responded to the vaccine so rapidly, yet our brains were so slow to catch up, still triggering that nagging alarm whose tone was our PM's voice, telling us that this close encounter is far too illicit and we must retreat at once. I'd bumped into a man like this more than 1,000 times, always with less than 1.5 meters separating us and our respiratory doorways in full view. But this winter, adorned with a new layer of universal emotion, the impact was far more pronounced. Elsa was late. It was difficult to believe, given how much more efficient the journey into the entrance of the pub was now, with no wasted time applying layers of sanitizer and fumbling for your mask and phone to check in on the NHS app. What excuse was there for lateness? She ran up and enveloped me in a warm hug, no longer any need for awkward elbow bumps masquerading as greetings. Her euphoria was unmistakable as she commenced her first night of freedom with a vivacious gulp of her pint, pretending that her enthusiasm was solely due to the end of the virus, and nothing to do with her husband taking the baby tonight. She was constantly sanitizing our conversations to mask any emotion over the unspeakable baby, because what kind of best friend would she be if she flaunted any elation over this well-earned night off from her motherly duties? Every passing month of homebound bliss with her family, hesitating to relay her joy to me, racked with guilt over every social media post, had created more space between us than social distancing ever could. The frigid streets of London were saturated with gratitude this December, its typically unsmiling inhabitants overcome with a blazing new appreciation for their exquisitely boring lives. But Elsa was cognizant of her duty to dim her exuberance. I was exhilarated, knowing I was about to relieve her of this burden, as she stood wretchedly unaware that the vodka soda and lime my frostbitten fingers were clinging to was in fact far less intoxicating soda and lime. My ugly Christmas sweater was hiding my liberation from my own disease. 12 months earlier, I had been in isolation. Each day was slightly more interminable than the last, my career dismantled by the pandemic and life advancing rapidly. The first glass of wine was becoming earlier and fuller each day. I had told Harry I deserved to indulge before the sobering years of IVF began, bewildered at his constant state of frustrating tranquility. The COVID case numbers were increasing exponentially, each update shadowed by an unbearable subtext for us. My daily walk through an eerily desolate London was accompanied by a voice, howling at me that each day lockdowns were prolonged, my treatment would be delayed. I had seen my probability of success dwindle with the autumn leaves. Our lives were all on hold, while I inched alarmingly closer to 35. I felt the hushed and buoyant anticipation for a vaccine alongside the rest of the world, while selfishly grieving the knowledge that there was no vaccine for my lost fallopian tubes. It felt so shameful to say, while an inconceivable number of precious lives were being lost to the virus, but I felt our own life was slipping away. My only comfort was the image I had been conjuring of this night in the pub in an alien existence. So I had already seen the moment in this toasty pub, packed far past its non-existent capacity limits, when I informed Elsa of the new life inside me. The world is reincarnated into this familiar setting as if we are newborns ourselves, each reveller enlightened by an evolved meaning of intimacy, and flocks of families and friends reassembled. Hospitals are empty and airports are full. We embrace the fresh winter air that once felt so bitter now brimming with new beginnings and an unfamiliar exuberance for our magnificently uneventful lives. It's too good to be true.